In this video, we are going to go over the reports that are available through ThunderPOS. We're not going to go show each of them, but we're going to kind of go through the list, go over what each of them does, go over what you can do with reports. So we have here our reports screen. This is working with a sample database. The data is a little old at this point. But I'll just bring some of it up on some of these reports. And if you go into reports and you're logged in as an administrator, you'll get permissions along the lines of these. If you're in as an employee with restricted permissions where you have specific reports, you'll just see the reports that are available to you. If you are logged in and you don't have permission for any reports, you can still go to reports. It'll just say you don't have permission to run any reports. So probably the most important one here, as you can see, we can navigate through this screen by just clicking the little plus icons next to the different types of reports. And the most important one for most customers is this first one, sales totals. In very old versions of the software, the equivalent to this was known as the detailed daily report if you're coming from an old version. But sales totals, it can be run for any date range. And as you can see on the right hand side, we get the filters we're allowed to use. Date range is available for a lot of the different reports, where you, especially ones that are based off of sales activity. And it will just let you pick out a date range of when you want to see the report. And we'll actually bring this one up. I'm going to just run it for like a month, like a couple of years ago, because like I said, this is fairly old data in this database. And you can choose to show itemized sales on this one. That'll give you a list of items on the bottom, but for the moment I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to run the totals. So when you hit run report, it's going to bring up your report in the report viewer. And somewhat unique to this particular report, so as you can see, we get our report just showing on screen here. Somewhat unique to this particular report, you have a couple more options here. Manage scheduled reports is available on all reports. We'll go over that towards the end of this video. But this particular report allows you to print it to your receipt printer or to do a text-only version of the report rather than going through the report viewer. So that's your kind of primary totals report, and that's what you're going to be using for a lot of your accounting in particular. So this is a really key one. But you do get more sales reports that will allow you to break things out in various ways. I'll just bring up by category because a lot of these look very similar. But they'll give you a breakdown where it'll break it out by each category and show you your sales. It'll give you optionally this graph that'll break it down by percentage at a glance. That graph tends to look a little better actually for if you are doing it by department, because most people have fewer departments and this store is among them. This is from a game store. It has game sales as the majority of its sales. But you can also break it down, in addition to category and department, you can do it by your logged in employee. You can do it by the hour that it was sold. That one looks a little different, so we'll show it. So you can see kind of when you're busy throughout the day. You can do it by your day of week, where you can see, probably not surprising, Saturday tends to be the busiest day here. This particular store is not open on Sundays, so no sales on Sundays. It does split out sales versus trade, so you can see where actually in this store's case they sold more on Saturdays, but they actually took more trades on Tuesdays. Sales by customer, by the primary vendor associated with the items, and then finally you can get your list of daily payment types, which will just give you a breakdown day by day of how much you took in the various tender types. So those are your sales reports. Under items, we have a list, which will, in whatever way you filter it, give you a list of all items in your inventory. Audit quantity, if you are using the optional audit quantity changes setting, where it will require you to put in a reason whenever you change the quantity, then it will show here what those were, who made them, when. So this is where you can view your quantity changes to your items in inventory. Audit price and cost changes. This is similar to audit quantity changes. They don't have to put in a reason for these, but it will just automatically record who made the price changes or who made the cost changes so that you can, if there is a problem, go back and see it. That feature only goes back a few versions, so you won't have historical data for it before, I believe, about January of 2020. Reorder report. This will just show your items below the reorder level. You can consider used in stock in that optionally. You can also filter to particular vendors, departments, categories, just to kind of see that. Your top sellers report will show you by default the top 25 selling items in that time range, but you can filter it down again by department and category. If we just run this, a lot of times at the top, yeah, like a bag of chips is at the top of this if you don't filter it by department or category, because small items like that tend to be for most stores. Total value will just give you the total cost-based value of your inventory as well as a unit count. We do not show like price-based value anywhere. That doesn't really have a meaning from an accounting point of view, but you can always do an item list if you really need that and use Excel to calculate it. Street date, you can actually show your items that fall within a certain street date. So as you can see here, it's going to be items that were released in early of January of 2018, since I didn't change that date range. Items by category, department, and vendor are just a list of items within those particular things. So, you know, category 0 will just be your items that are in the default category. PO serial numbers, you have the option to take serial numbers for items that you take in on purchase orders when you receive them. If you do, this is where you can report it. Idle items report, this will show you items that have not been sold since a certain date. And then items purchase order will give you your purchase orders and instant purchase orders within a certain day range and how much quantity of different items came in. So under transactions, we get the invoice totals. That's going to be a breakdown on an invoice by invoice level of your different totals for the transaction. It won't have your items sold, but it will have your top line numbers for that transaction. So who did it, when, what customer, how it was paid for, how much it was. Serial numbers will be a report of your serial numbers of items that you sold or took in trade if you're using the use serial numbers function. Very useful for things like hardware, turntables. In the case of record stores, a lot of times they have serial numbers, that kind of thing. It doesn't even have to necessarily be an actual serial number barcoded onto the product. If you're doing some sort of tracking with it, you can put whatever in as the serial number that will identify it. Up to 30 characters, I believe, is the limit. Audit register activity. This will actually give you a report on things like discounts done at the register, times transactions were voided after they were completed, the times that the cash drawer was opened that wasn't attached to a transaction, and that sort of thing. Return reason log. This is if you are using the setting for doing a return where you have to put in a reason. This is an optional security setting that is off by default. This will be where you can view that, and it just means that the customer is going to get asked, why are you returning this, and you have to put in whatever reason they say, and it'll record that. Kind of prevents fraudulent returns, or at least helps you catch them if somebody's displaying a pattern. Account transactions, this will just show where somebody has made payments or you've done adjustments to someone's account if you're using the customer accounts feature. Suspended transactions, this will show transactions that have been suspended that have not yet been recalled. Once it's recalled and you finish the transaction or cancel it, it won't be on this report anymore. So this is just how you can see the ones you've suspended, so that if you forget what you suspended, you have a way to recover that. Traded items is going to be a list of items that have been traded in during that time frame and how much you gave for them. Promotion sales allows you to see items that were sold with a certain promotion attached to them. So that way you can actually see, like if you offer a discount to military members or to people who have a discount card, you can see how much that particular promotion is actually getting redeemed and how much it's costing you to run that promotion. And also how much that promotion is successful at driving sales of the items that you are trying to promote. History for item will just give you the sales history for a specific item ID during a date range. You can also see this under the view more and then view history in items, but this is printable. So if you need to print this off for some reason for a specific item, this is the place to go. Under customers, we've got, the customer account balances, very simple. Customer account statement, that's going to be for a specific customer. It'll show all their transactions during a specific time range, or rather it'll run from a start date to the current time. A customer sales history, which will give you the particular sales history for a customer. An address list, this will show you all of the addresses for a customer. This includes email addresses, so if you need to export email addresses, this is one way of doing that. There are a couple of others. Discount cards, which will show you all of your discount cards. You can filter this to not show any cards that have expired. Customer wish lists, if you're using the wish list feature, this is where you can see all of them. A little bit less commonly used feature. A lot of times people do special orders instead, but if you do choose to use the wish lists, this is a way you can look at it. And then finally, under customers, we've got our customers rewards balance, which will allow you to see what the balance is on your different customers rewards points. Kind of getting down a little under store information, some pretty simple ones. Department, category, vendor list. Those are just going to list out all of your different departments, categories, and vendors respectively. Very simple. Gift card balances will just show you your outstanding liabilities for gift card balances, assuming you're using store gift cards, like the local gift cards. If you are using gift cards through your payment processor, you will need to go through them for a list of all of your balances because we won't have all of those. Rentals, if you're doing rentals, these are pretty self-evident. If you're not doing rentals, you don't need to worry about any of these, but it just shows you what's rented, what's late, what rental items that you currently have not got rented, so you can see what's in store right now, and then just a history of items being rented. And then kind of some miscellaneous other reports. Some of these are pretty useful, but a lot of them only apply if you're using certain features. Hours scheduled only works if you are using the labor scheduler, but it's how you can print out all the hours that you've scheduled people for so that you can put it up on your board or whatever so that people can know when they're supposed to work. So if you're using the labor scheduler for that purpose, you'll probably want to run this report and print it, or else your employees might not show up. Hours worked, more commonly used because a lot of people use the time clock. More people use the time clock, I think, than the labor scheduler. But your hours worked is where you can get a report of when people clocked in and clocked out, how many hours they worked during a certain time frame. Repairs is going to show you all of your repairs. You can filter it by the current status and by which employee was assigned to the repair, but that way you can check in on it. Repair notes. This is going to let you just see all the notes you've attached to repairs during a time range. And that way you can kind of keep up with the activity on your repairs. Special orders. This one's got a lot of filters on it, but this is where you can see your special orders and pre-orders. Very useful if you've got something that's about to come in and you need to call people. You can just filter to that particular item, or you can filter to an expected fill date, and just check for when you think that the order, like, get everything that's supposed to be filled today or this week and call everybody up. If you don't have it yet, you can also filter to just items that are covered by stock, and that way you can just call people who, the item is there. And then the last two are both only really useful if you're using the time clock. Particularly employee metrics does not do anything if you're not using the time clock, but it will, if you are using the time clock, show how busy your store tended to be while that employee was clocked in. So it'll show you, how many sales, how much in sales, how much in trades per hour happened while that employee was clocked in. And it can be kind of useful to see if there's a correlation there. And then employee activity will give you, for one employee, their hours worked, and then any audit activity they've done. So any of the things that would appear on the various audit reports, like audit quantity changes or audit the register. So anything that would be on those reports, this kind of gets grouped here for a single employee. And that can be very useful for tracking down if there might be a problem, or just viewing, what somebody has been doing within the system. So that's all of the reports. As I mentioned, the other button besides just running the report is Manage Scheduled Reports. So you have to, before you use this, you need to have an email account set up in your settings screen that can send emails. And I would actually test that. Try sending yourself an emailed receipt. Make sure it's working, because otherwise you're never going to get these reports. For more details on that, see our settings video, because we do go over the email settings there. But the sales totals report here, you can see, no longer says, once I've said that I wanted to manage scheduled reports, you no longer have the date filter, but you still have the other filters. And that's because the date filter is going to automatically get applied when it gets run, because it's going to be recurring. So if I say, for example, that I want to send it to my personal work email here, jeremy@extremepos.com, then, and I say I first want it to run here and daily, then it would send it to me every day right after midnight for the previous day. If I said I wanted it monthly, then it would send it to me on the 12th of every month for the previous month. So it would send me a detailed daily, or not a detailed daily report, a sales totals report for April 12th to May 11th at 11:59 p.m. And it's going to send it to me as a PDF. If you do not choose to send it as a PDF, it will send it as an Excel spreadsheet. Particularly be aware with Excel that some email providers block receiving Excel files, in which case you will not receive it. If you are having trouble with that, try either a different email account or a PDF, depending on your needs. If you need it in Excel format, you may have to send it to a different one if your email provider doesn't let you get raw Excel files, which is just blocked on some email providers because it can be used to send out, nasty things. So once you've got that going, and you would just hit Add Scheduled Report, and then when the program is running, it will send it as soon as the time has been met for it to send out. So in this case, as soon as the program is running and it's May 12th or later, at midnight or later, then it will send it, and it will increment it so that it will send it again on June 12th as soon as it can. So that can be really useful. That works with virtually every report. There's one or two that it doesn't work with because it doesn't make sense for them. But for the most part, you can have it just send, and you can send as many different ones as you need. You can set up, monthly and annual and weekly and daily emails if you want to the same email address. You can set them to a bunch of different email addresses. It's totally fine. You're just going to want to do that and make sure it's working. I would do one and then just make sure you get it before I set up, dozens of them or anything. And if it doesn't work, the big thing to look out for is your email settings. Just make sure, like I said, I would try sending a receipt through email. Make sure that works for you. And then I would try PDF if Excel isn't working for you, but you're getting the receipt, because likely your provider is blocking Excel files. But that's the built-in reports. We do have a custom report generator that can do certain things, like items. You can have it send the fields you need. That can also be scheduled to send on a recurring basis, but that's going to be a subject for another video. All right. Thank you all for watching.